Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi लये संबोधयेत् चित्तं विक्षिप्तं शमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत्. Om. In the last class, we started our study of the third chapter, the Vibhuti Yoga. So, as I had also mentioned, that we have not studied this earlier. In the earlier iteration of our study, we just did the Sadhana Pada and the Samadhi Pada, first and second, but we had not done the third and fourth. So now it's an opportunity to do that. One of the important concepts that we identified is that when we practice yoga, and then Chittavritti Nirodha happens, concentration happens. So invariably, many powers accrue, and those powers are called the Vibhutis. At the Vibhutis, we have seen this even in our own lifetime. If we really pay attention to that, whether it is the sweeping power that at one point of time President Donald Trump had, or the way in which Elon Musk is handling Twitter, you can see they're all Vibhutis. They're all powers acquired by their tapas, swadhyaya. Then whether Ishwara Pranidhana they did or not is a different thing. At least tapas swadhyaya they have done. It is because of that only they could achieve such heights. The warning also given by Patanjali Maharshi is these vibhutis can also cause a terrible downfall for the person, because they will go to a point and that point will be where they could be pushed down and very hard. In fact, today one of the shocking things I read was where Trump is saying that we have to abandon the Constitution. So you can imagine how power can be abused. I can understand that probably the Constitution is 200 years old, so it requires a revisiting, it requires some tweaking, it has to be modernized. All that I can understand, but throw it away. So we have got to so contextual to what Patanjali Maharshi is saying. When vibhutis accrue, then the persons become so arrogant and so much depending on their power that the fall will be quite terrible. This reminds me of the well-known story of Jaya Vijaya. Jaya Vijaya were the doorkeepers of Mahavishnu. It's not just that they were doorkeepers of Mahavishnu. If you look at their iconography, so we have to identify there are two doorkeepers. And the two doorkeepers in front of any Vishnu temple, if you look at carefully the iconography, they look like, they are clothed exactly like Vishnu. They have 4 hands, and the only difference in what they hold is Mahavishnu holds Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, whereas Jaya Vijayas hold Shankha, Chakra, Gada and a sword. So that's the identifying difference between Jaya Vijayas and Mahavishnu. So you can imagine that what a level they have achieved and what a vibhuti that they have achieved. The story of Jaya Vijaya is a classic illustration of the fall of a yogi. So because of the great vibhutis that Jaya Vijaya acquired, they had the Paramasannidhya, extraordinary presence in front of Mahavishnu. The moment Mahavishnu comes out of his sanctum sanctorum, who is the first person that he looks at? He looks at Jaya Vijaya. Who is the person we look at when we want to have Mahavishnu's darshana? Jaya Vijaya. That glory. So you can also see executive secretaries to CEOs are usually much more powerful than the executives themselves, because nobody can have access to the executives without the Dwarapalaka favoring you. So this is well known. And one day, to visit Jaya Vijaya's, the four Kumaras, that is Sanat Kumara, Sanat Sujata, Sanaka Sanandana, they were Brahma's Manasa Putras. Because of their extraordinary tapas, they remained ever youthful. So they come for having an audience with Mahavishnu, and the Dwarapalakas, our executive secretaries, will say, no, you cannot see. You cannot see the Lord. So obviously, immediately, the four Kumaras, they will say that, we don't have access to see Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu has authorized that we can go and see him at any time of the day, any time, any day. So how dare you stop us? So I hereby give you a curse that you will fall down on the earth. So this story is very well known. And that is when the Jaya Vijayas realize their folly, and they fall at the feet of Mahavishnu and say, please, we cannot get out of your presence. Please bless us. Take back the curse that was thrown at us by the Kumaras. But Mahavishnu says, no, I cannot take it back. But I can give you a little modification. Either you take 7 births by becoming my greatest devotees, or you take 3 births by becoming my arch enemies, and I will actually kill you, and then at the end of the 3 you will come back to me. As a sidebar, when you go to the Vishnu temples and you look at the iconography of Jaya Vijaya, how do you identify who is Jaya, who is Vijaya? Both of them look absolutely alike. Both of them have Shankha Chakra Gada, and they have the sword. So this is how we identify. Jaya has got in the chakra in the upper left hand, chakra. In the upper right hand, he has got Shankha. And Vijaya, it is reversed. The chakra is in the upper right hand. The Shankha is in the upper left hand. For both of them, the Gada will be in the lower left hand and the sword will be in the lower right hand. So that is how we identify who is Jaya and who is Vijaya. Just as a sidebar, so that when you go to any of these temples with Jaya Vijayas there, so you can identify that these are the Dwarapalakas. So let us look at their fall. They choose to take 3 births. The first time it was in Satya Yuga. We have Hiranyakashipu and we have Hiranyaksha. So Hiranyakashipu is the reincarnation of Vijaya, and Hiranyaksha is a reincarnation of Jaya. And as we know very well, Hiranyaksha was slayed by in Varaha Avatar, in Hiranyakashipu by Narasimha Avatar. Next fall was in Treta Yuga, where Jaya becomes Ravana and Vijaya becomes Kumbhakarna, and of course Rama is the one who slays them. Then in the third iteration in Dwapara Yuga, Jaya becomes Shishupala and Dantavakra is Vijaya and Krishna slays them. All this is known. But no, look at the precipitous fall for Jaya Vijaya, for abusing the Vibhuti. In the first iteration of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, in both of them ruled the entire world. There was no other king on the earth. But what about in Treta Yuga? Ravana's realm was limited. He could not rule over Ayodhya or he could not rule over Videha. Already the eminence has gone further down. Let's come to Dwapara Yuga and see Shishupala Dantavakra were small minor chieftains in central India in the present day Nagpur area. They did not even rule a good part of Bharata. So that is what happens when Vibhuti is actually misused. So with that warning that any Vibhuti that is listed in the third chapter is possible for a yogi, the person must be very, very aware that there can be a great fall also. So with that, we started our study of the third chapter. The first sutra is Desha Bandha Chittasya Dharana. Desha means place, Bandha means fixing. So fixing the chitta or the concentration of the chitta on a particular place, Desha. Now, this fixing of the mind can also be associated with breathing. So, because we have to remember that Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana is a sequential practice of the Ashtanga Yoga. So, each one of them can leverage on the powers that are occurred in the previous Yoga, Anga Yoga. So, the previous Anga, for example, of Pratyahara, withdrawing of the senses, can be leveraged with the pranayama. Similarly, dharana can be leveraged with the pranayama, and then this is called as pranayama dharana. In pranayama dharana, there's a text called Ishvara Gita. This Ishvara Gita gives a measure of how pranayama can be used for concentration. Dharana dvadasha yama. So if you do 12 pranayamas, then that is with as prescribed. Proper pranayama 12 times if you do, the mind will get concentration. Dhyanam dvadasha dharanaha. So for transition from concentration to meditation, we can translate dharana as concentration and dhyana as meditation. For concentration to become meditation, 12 times of the dharanas. So 12 times 12 is 144 pranayamas will give the focus of the mind for dhyana. Dhyana dvadashakam yavat. If the 12 times dhyana, that is 1728 times the pranayama it is done, samadhi rabhiriyate. A person can achieve the third state, which is samadhi. But still the prerequisites are that yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara are all preliminary practices. They have to be practiced. Number one, before concentration can be achieved, those 5 angas have to be practiced. Number 2, you go to Sutra number 33 of chapter 1, which talks about Maitri, Karuna, upeksha, mudita upeksha, sukha dukkha punya apunya vishayanam bhavanataha chitta prasadanam. Chitta prasada is a mental tranquility, is a prerequisite for concentration, which is true. If our mind is not calm, it is impossible to concentrate. If our mind is disturbed with something, then it is hard to concentrate. So how to make sure that in a disturbed state of mind we can achieve concentration? For that, first of all, pranayama will bring our mind to focus. Secondly, those who are happy, towards them we should send out waves of friendship. Maitri towards the sukhi, compassion towards those who are suffering, have got dukkha. Then we have got to have a joy towards those people who are fortunate, punyavantas, and an indifference towards papis. So that is the second prerequisite for achieving concentration. So first prerequisite is pranayama. Of course, yama niyama asana pranayama. The second requisite is attitude, maitri, karuna, upeksha, mudita. And the third one is choice of place. The choice of place, we have seen in Bhagavad Gita also, it must be clean. It must be free from any bugs and insects. It must be free from any noise and distraction. And so you sit very comfortably. Sukham sthiram asanam. So that is why we separate a puja room, and that puja room will be far away from the hustle and bustle and noise of the house. So that is where we have to choose a place for doing dharana. So the Shastra mentions that dharana or concentration can be achieved by fixing the chitta, which is the internal organs, on either external objects or it can be on our own inner body. So external object will be a Saguna Devata, your favorite deity. The internal organs are identified by many texts, including the commentary of Vyasa. We see this in Sangeeta, in music also. I'll come to that in a moment. They identified 6 locations in our own body. And they are Nabhi Chakra, that is what they call as the Manipura Chakra, which is our own navel region, because it is the navel is the origin of everything. So to bring our mind to the Nabhi Chakra, we have the iconography of Mahavishnu, from the navel of which comes out a lotus. And who sits on it? It is Brahma. What is Brahma? Brahma means knowledge. So our own navel is a desha, Nabhi Chakra. It can be the heart, the lotus of the heart, Hridaya Kamala. It can be the top of our head or the center of our head, Murdha. It can be even a light. So dharana is possible by looking at the lamp that you have lit up, Jyoti. It is at the tip of the nose, as identified in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, called Nasikagra, or it may be at the tip of the tongue, Jihvagra. So 6 locations for dharana are recommended by the Shastra: Nabhi, Hridaya, head, Murdha, light, Jyoti, tip of the nose, Nasikagra, and tip of the tongue, Jihvagra. So Bhagavad Gita, you can see in chapter 6:13, he is saying, Samam kaya shirogrivam dharayan achalam sthiraha samprekshya nasikagram swam, our own, not somebody else's. Samprekshya nasikagram swam dishascha anavalokayan. All these are, that is mandatory, keeping our head, our neck and then the body, all of them should be straight, it should be steady and unmoving, because any movement disturbs the mind. And likewise, we have to focus on the tip of the nose, and we do not glance in any direction. So we talked about pranayama dharana. So focusing on one particular area of our own body and focusing all the senses on that one particular place is called pratyahara dharana. Because this is where all the sense organs are brought into only one location. Because desha is the key word in this sutra. So therefore, dishascha anavalokayan, says Krishna, that is, don't look here and there. So many distractions will be there. We keep our cell phone right next to us when we are in the puja room, and any sound that the cell phone makes, we turn our glance there. So therefore, all distractions have to be removed. Then asana dharana is where we don't look in any direction other than the object of focus. Therefore, we have got asana dharana when Krishna says, Dishascha anavalokayan, not looking here and there. So pranayama dharana is one way. Then you have got the pratyahara dharana, second kind. You have got the asana dharana, the third kind. So depending on whatever works for anybody, for a person, that dharana is chosen. It can also be changed. And one day it can be asana dharana, one day it can be pranayama dharana, one day it can be pratyahara dharana. What would be the best recommendation of all of these? Usually they say the lotus of our own heart. Because when we close our eyes, and then when all the distractions are removed, even the eyes are not looking at any particular part of our body or the lighted lamp. It is completely internal, and that's why you may see in the Sankshipta Puja Vidhi, I have included a prayer. Hridaya Kamala Madhye Nirvishesham Niriham Harihara Vidhi Vedyam Yogi Bhi Dhyanagamyam Janana Marana Bhiti Brahmshi Satchit Swarupam Nikhila Bhuvana Bijam Brahma Chaitanya Mede. In the 1 minute puja, this is the Dhyana Shloka that I have included, having in my view that concentrating on the Hridaya Kamala achieves dharana very efficiently. This dharana is where mind will not be fluctuating. And then, what is the problem with the mind? When the mind is looking at any object, fluctuation takes place. Why does fluctuation take place? It is because of avidya. When avidya is there, then asmita comes. Look at the klesha that is coming up. Then we get the fear of ourselves, mortality. Abhinivesha will come. So you can see in this dhyana shloka, what we say is, Abhinivesha is countered by nirihaha. That means there is no desire. So desire is the cause of clinging to ourselves, our body. So nirihaha. Then niriha also causes freedom from ragadvesha. Nirvisheshaha means I am here, nobody else is there. Because what is happening in dhyana? You are in absolute solitude. When there is no second, there can be no ragadvesha. Isn't it? Dvitiyadvai bhayam bhavati, says the Upanishad. When there is a second, there is bhaya. But when you are in this state of meditation, at that point of time, all the kleshas, avidya, asmita, ragadvesha, abhiniveshas, all of them neutralize. And that neutralizing prayer is Hridaya Kamala Madhye. And that can be used as a method of dharana for concentration. We can also take another example of a jyoti. That is, you can use a lamp. Now here I am reminded of a beautiful verse from Narayaniyam. In Narayaniyam there is a verse where he says, Agre pashyame tejaha. So he looks at the radiance and the halo of Sri Krishna. Of course, Hari is going to talk about this section, the 100th verse in Narayaniyam, when he presents on the Pratibhavancha. Nibiditara kalayavali lobhaniyam. So you are now completely making your dharana on Sri Krishna. I see the halo of the radiance of Krishna. And you see Narada and other sages that are there around him. And I see the Gopika Stris as the personification of Upanishad. It says Upanishad Sundari Mandanaischa. It's a lovely, one of the most beautiful verses of Narayaniya. We'll wait for Hari to comment on this. But I'm just pointing out that is a great dharana tool, that particular verse. Dharana can also be achieved by concentrating on our Ishta Devata. This is where Ishvara Pranidhana can be used for dharana. Why I am pointing out all these details is so that you see that whatever was taught in this sadhana pada are all supporting the bringing the mind into concentration. Do you want to do tapas? That is, do you want to study the scripture? Do you want to do swadhyaya? Do you want to do Ishvara Pranidhana? Do you want to do Yama-Niyamasana Pranayama? Whatever you are doing, every single recommendation that is given in the second chapter, what is happening is it's all leading us to concentration, to dharana only. So Ishta Devata you can use by taking up again a stotra where the form of the Ishta Devata is actually meditated upon, like Shantakaram Bhujakashayanam, or you use Vaidehi Sahitam Suradrumatale, or you can use the one on Devi who is Sinduraruna Vikraham Trinayanam. All these stotras are familiar to us because we chant Vishnu Sahasranama, we chant Lalita Sahasranama. Now the thing is, what all we have done Swadhyaya of these Sahasranamas and those stotras can be used in achieving dharana. What is special? What is the unique characteristic of all these varieties of dharana that I was talking about, whether it is pranayama dharana, whether it is pratyahara dharana, whether it is asana dharana, whether it is ishtadevata dharana, or desha dharana, any of these are all bhavana pradhanam. Bhavana pradhana means all these are actually using our natural innate capacity for expressing our emotions. We have expressed our emotions of love, friendship, compassion, all of these beautiful expressions of the mind. We know how it is. But in dharana, we are bringing it to a perfection. What kind of perfection it is? Such a perfection that the dharana reverberates in every part of our being. The concentration must reverberate. It is not purely an intellectual activity. It must reverberate in the entire being. You must feel that concentration, whether you are seeing something, whether you are thinking about something, whether hearing something. And I can point out to you an extraordinary composition of Tyagaraja in a lovely raga called Jagan Mohini. So just a quiz. Can anybody say what composition I was thinking of? In the raga Jagan Mohini of Tyagaraja. Shobhil Saptaswara. So Shobhil Saptaswara, in that he has got a beautiful phrase. Nabhi hrit kantha rasana nasika. There are Saptaswaras. The Saptaswaras find their perfection in Nabhi hritkantha rasana. In these locations, Nasadulanduku Shobhillu Saptaswara. Nabhi hritkantha rasana Nasadulandu Shobhillu Saptaswara. Those who know Telugu, they immediately caught that. That is, this swara, the beauty of swara, Shobhillu, shines through in the navel, in the heart, in the throat, in the tongue, and in the nose. Exactly the 6 that we talked about earlier. So these are the various methods and forms of dharana, but they are only the aids to the mind in its search for perfection of meditation, dhyana, and samadhi. So if this was adequate, then Patanjali Maharshi would have stopped here. But he continues for dhyana and samadhi because dharana alone cannot bring success in dhyana and samadhi. And therefore dharana should morph itself into dhyana, which should culminate in samadhi, and together it must become samyama. That's the trend that the scripture is going. So how does the mind become stable? How can we achieve dharana? Again, we have to look at the entire Yoga Sutra we have studied so far and extract from that the thread. They are abhyasa, vairagya, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana is the one which studies the chitta. And it sets the stage for dhyana at this point. So now we will see what is dhyana. The second sutra says, Tatra pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. So as we saw in dharana, what is happening is the mind is fixed on one place or one object. Let us say it is placed in our heart. So it has fixed there. But even there, it can be hovering around the characteristics of that object. Even though we have set a boundary, within that boundary, the mind can be moving about. Let us say, I am going to do the dharana on Sri Krishna. So you have done dharana on Sri Krishna, then you will start seeing the flute, you will start seeing the peacock feather, and you will start seeing all those characteristics of Krishna. We have achieved the dharana on Krishna's form, but dhyana we have not achieved. So for this dharana to go to dhyana, what Patanjali says is tatra. Tatra means what? You have to see from the previous sutra, desha bandha chittasya dharana. So tatra refers to desha because tatra means there. There means a place. That place is the desha. Say for example the navel or the heart, etc. There, pratyaya means to affix, to actually attach. And pratyaya intensifies the chitta towards the object. So first what we have done here is we have just created a space. And in that space we have embedded Krishna. So only our mind is not going out of that space, but it is looking at a number of attributes of Krishna. And therefore, to that extent, dharana is achieved, but the pratyaya means the experience of Krishna, the cognition of Krishna, the conception of the deity of Krishna has not happened, isn't it? In your heart, there is Krishna. So, in dharana, what is happening? I am only looking at the actual form which either I have imagined or it has been handed down to me. So, in dhyana, what happens? So, Patanjali Maharshi gives another qualifying word saying ekatanata. Ekatanata means fixing on one point only. Sita has been abducted. And then obviously Rama Lakshmana are so desperate, they are not able to find. Jatayu dies before. It only says Ravana abducted Sita and he took her southwards. And then Jatayu dies. So no more clue is given, except that they were going down, they had to go down south. So Rama Lakshmana travel south and they come upon Kishkindha. And in Kishkindha, you know that they meet Hanuman. And then Rama Lakshmana described to Hanuman and Sugriva later on that they have lost their, Rama has lost his wife. And we are desperately looking for it. The only thing we know is that she was carried in the air. We don't know from here where he went. Probably, since it was mentioned as Ravana, Sugriva knew Ravana. The reason he knew Ravana is because he had a truce with Vali. Vali and Ravana had a truce. So next clue comes is Ravana is in south, further south in the island of Lanka. Then Sugriva comes up and says, a lady from the sky dropped all ornaments. And we have collected those ornaments. Please identify if they belong to Sita. Rama is so much grief stricken. You know, sometimes when there is tremendous amount of grief, the chitta will not be able to recognize anything. Here we are talking about the continuity of pratyaya. There is no pratyaya at all. There is no cognition at all for the mind when there is intense amount of dukkha or intense amount of sukha. In both of those extremes, the mind will have no concentration. So Rama says, I am so overcome by grief, I cannot identify anything. Lakshmana, can you see and then identify if you know any of the ornaments belong to Sita? Lakshmana is also equally grief stricken, but he is not as debilitated as Rama. He says, okay, I will take a look. Then Hanuman spreads all the jewels. There was a necklace, there was the headband, there were the ear studs, Karna Kundala was there, Keyura was there. Kundala is the ornament you put to your ears. Keyura is the one which we decorate to our arms. So Lakshmana is sifting all those. Now let us talk about one-pointed dhyana. Where tatra, in the desha, in the space, tatra, pratyayaha ekatanata. Pratyaya means the mind is fixed. And it is fixed in ekatanata means 1 point only. So what was the one single point of Sita that Lakshmana had fixed his mind. He says, Naham janami keyure, Naham janami kundale, Nupure jabhijanami nityam padabhivandanat. Naham janami keyure. I do not know the ornament of the shoulder because I have not seen Sita Mata so closely to identify. If you have to identify the ornament worn by a woman, you have got to really look for it. Isn't it? I have not stared at my sister-in-law to identify her Keyura. Naham janami kundale. I have not seen with such intensity to know that this belongs to my sister-in-law. Nupure tyabijanami. I know her anklets because nityam padavivandanat. Every day my mind was ekatanata dhyanam tatra. There was all the pratyayas of my mind was only on the lotus feet of Sita, where she was actually wearing the anklets. So I know that this is her anklet. Kishkinda Kanda, 6th chapter, 22nd verse, one of my most favorite verses. This is how Ekatanata is achieved. What is the difference between dharana and dhyana? In dharana and dhyana, the object concerned is one and the same. In my Hridaya Kamala, there is Krishna. In dharana and in dhyana also. So now let's take another example to understand the difference. Let's say we are doing the Nitya Puja. I do puja for Shiva. At the time of performing the puja and during the puja, what is the only thought I have got? None other than Shiva, isn't it? From the time I do Avahana till the time I do Visarjana, my mind has got none other than the Ishtadevata of whom I am doing puja. But in the process of the ritual of the puja, I have not lost my awareness. Now, I have to do Achamana, I have to offer Achamana, I have to do Arghya, I have to do Padya, I have to do Panchamrita Abhisheka, I have got to do the decoration with flowers, I have to wave the lamp, I have to wave the dhupa, I have to offer Naivedya. Now what happened to the mind? The mind has got Deshabandha. It is not wavering away from the puja room, from the altar, from concentrating on Shiva. But it is not dhyana, it is only dharana. The reason it is only dharana is because in addition to fixing my mind on that object of worship, my mind is also engaged in a variety of successive acts, even though those successive acts are flowing the chitta vritti towards the same object. So the chitta vritti is flowing towards the same object, Shiva, in the same desha, the altar. But it is still dharana because of the multiplicity of actions that I will not forget to do in the proper sequence. It is like your faucet in the kitchen leaking. So it will leak one drop at a time, but every drop falls only directly into the sink, isn't it? At the same place it will fall. But between drops there is a gap. drops are same, they fall in the same place, but there is a gap in the continuity of these droplets. Dharana is like that. Same place, same object, but the chitta vritti is coming in spurts. Whereas in dhyana, say we are actually putting oil in the lamp, in the well of the lamp. You don't put drop by drop. You actually pour the oil in a continuous flow until the well of the lamp is complete. And dhyana is that ekatanata, that is the continuity without any break at all. So my Shiva Puja, Krishna Puja, Vishnu Puja, how can it become transcend dharana and become dhyana? This is where even in our ritual we have introduced Ashtottara and Sahasranama. So in Ashtottara and Sahasranama, let us take a sentence from Vishnu Sahasranama. In Vishnu Sahasranama, what do we say? Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkaro Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Unlike the droplets of the water from the leaky faucet, it is ekatanata flow. The chitta vritti in chanting of this Vishnu Sahasranama is uninterruptedly flowing to Vishnu and Vishnu only, even though the epithets of Vishnu change. This is called in Shastra as vritti santati. What is the meaning of santati? Child, progeny. In dharana, there is no, because of the break, there is no continuity of the progeny. Whereas in vritti santati, what happens is, just as the progeny of a particular species belongs to the same species, one. Secondly, the progeny and the progenitor exist for a period of time together. In dhyana also, the progenitor and the progeny exist simultaneously and one connects to the other. Vishnu, progenitor. Vishwam, progeny. Obviously, yes, Vishnu's progeny is the world. Vishnu and Vishwam coexist. Vishwam's progeny is Vashatkara. Vashatkara and Vishnu coexist. Vashatkara becomes Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat exists with Prabhu Vishnu. This is the vritti santati. So in dharana, in dhyana, the chitta vrittis, one succeeding the other, is just like the santati. So it is a vritti santati. That is the difference between dharana and dhyana. An important difference. Because otherwise we may stop at dharana and not progress towards dhyana. So what is the characteristic of dhyana? How can we say I have achieved dhyana? Answer comes in the third sutra. Tadeva arthamatra nirbhasam swarupa shunyameva samadhi. Sutra 3. Tadeva. Tadeva means that object. Vishnu, Shiva, that object. Arthamatra means that object of meditation is called Arthamatra. That object of meditation only is nirbhasam. It is shining. it is appearing. And then what about the meditator? Swarupa Shunyam Iva, as though the meditator does not exist at all. That state is Samadhi, the third of the, or the last of the Ashtanga Yogas. So dhyana should come to Samadhi. In Samadhi, when in dhyana, even when you are chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, there is the meditator who has got the Vritti Santati. Mahavishnu, the object of meditation, is there. The act of meditation is going on. This is called Triputi, another technical term. Triputi means dhyatru, that is the meditator, dhyana, meditation, dhyeya, object of meditation. These three are existing. So where dhyana, dhyatru, dhyeya, triputi is there, and ekatanata, that is one single pointed focus is there, it is dhyana. But in samadhi, what happens? Only the dhyeya remains. That you are meditating, even that awareness is gone. That means there is no vritti at all. Even the vritti santati disappears. Only the dhyeya is recognized. And that point is said in this phrase, arthamatra nirbhasam. This is our everyday experience. When you are watching an extremely absorbing movie, we forget ourselves. We forget that we are watching a movie also. Isn't it? You are so completely engrossed in the plot. And then you are resonating to the various emotions that are happening in the plot, that you forget yourself, and that you are also forgetting that you are doing the visual seeing of the movie. And therefore, it also can be called as Nirvitarka Samadhi can be applied here, because please see Sutra number 1, chapter number 1, Sutra number 43. Exactly repeats the same idea here. There's a reason for that. So what does he say in chapter 143? Smriti Parishaddhau Swarupa Shunya Iva Arthamatra Nirbhasa Nirvikaraha. Uses the same word, Arthamatra Nirbhasa. So when the memory is purified, the mind appears to be devoid of its own nature. What is the nature of the mind? You remember I defined mind in the context of chapter 143. Sankalpa Vikalpatmakam Manaha. Definition of mind is, it is capable of taking a vow, taking a project sankalpa, abandoning a project, or completing the project and forgetting about that project. That means chitta vritti has got a beginning and there is an end. Between beginning and the end, the chitta vritti is vritti santati. And in that time, when the memory is only interested in that particular object and that particular project, Swarupa Shunyaiva, as though it doesn't have any chitta vrittis, there is no thinking, there is no reflection, there is no cognition, there is no awareness, there is only the object which you are meditating upon. So Swarupa Shunyaiva. So it goes and achieves that state of Swarupa Shunya. That means only the object is illuminated. So in Samadhi also, Arthamatra Nirbhasa takes place. Arthamatra Nirbhasa shines. So how can we actually experience this? Let's go back to our puja. When we are doing puja, you are doing abhisheka. When you are doing abhisheka, you are aware of the murti in front of you. You are aware of the object with which you are doing abhisheka. It can be milk, it can be water, it can be honey. You are aware of that also. You have to be. Because when you say, I am actually offering in abhisheka milk, you have to select milk. So your mind has to shift from the desha that the deity you are worshipping, and for a brief moment, for the sake of abhisheka only, you pick up milk, not to drink. Therefore, dharana is there. So in dharana, the vigraha becomes the object. The physical vigraha is the object. Because you have to pick up that milk and pour it only on that vigraha only. In dhyana, what happens? You are actually probably using Vishnu Sahasranama. You don't have to use that also. You can also give up the mantra itself. But the symbolism of the Devata is there in your awareness. So this you can see very easily when you are worshipping a linga. Linga means symbol. So the Krishna's murti, the figure, or the salagrama of Mahavishnu, or the linga of Shiva, or the murti of the Devata will become, the form will recede, but the Devata will remain in your mind. When you are doing this abhisheka, you do not say that I am doing abhisheka to this silver image. What do you say then? I am doing abhisheka for Mahavishnu. That's what you say. In dharana, you are going to pick up the murti of Mahavishnu. Among all the murtis of the pantheon you have got in your altar. So therefore in dharana there is an identification of the form also. Whereas in dhyana, what is happening is the vigraha, forms of the vigraha, you stop looking at the flute, at the feathers of the peacock. You stop looking at all those things. You only see Krishna in that. The totality is there. And that when you see the totality without the classifications, it is called as the linga. Then you come to samadhi. In samadhi, you only see the tejas, the effulgence of the devata, whereas in Narayaniyam, he says, Agre Pashyami Teja. He is not saying Agre Pashyami Krishnam. You see the effulgence. So, dharana provides mental stability. Dhyana gives you the knowledge of the jnana swarupa of the object, and the samadhi gives jnana. So from mental stability, dharana, you progress to identify the form of the knowledge, jnana swarupa, and then you move on to jnana awareness itself. So manas, buddhi, chaitanya, all of them come together, and therefore the scripture calls it as samyama. Samyak yamayati iti samyama. Patanjali does not elaborate about samadhi too much. The reason is, in the first chapter, he has done elaborate discussion. If you go back and see 7 types of samadhi, he has identified in chapter 1. So he says, I have discussed enough. Then why am I talking about samadhi here? It is because I have to place samadhi in the context of practice, sadhana. And that sadhana is the Ashtanga Yoga sadhana for the sake of achieving the Nirvitarkar, Nirvibija Samadhi that I spoke of in the first chapter. Patanjali Maharshi is saying, you follow the template of the Ashtanga Yoga, and finally, Jnana Jnatridneya, the Triputi, when it disappears, you have achieved the Samyama.